During the Revolutionary War, the importance of diplomacy and communication was undeniably important in determining the outcome of the war and changing the world. My name is John Paul Fisher.
And my name is Josh.
And we are here to discuss this importance and explain the role of diplomacy and communication during the Revolutionary War. First, an explanation of what the Revolutionary War really was. The Revolutionary War, or American Revolution, was a war between the American colonists and their former ruler, Great Britain. The American colonists were growing slowly tired of the somewhat oppressive taxes, acts, and laws put in place by the British, and small outbreaks against the garrisoned British soldiers began to take place. Revolutionary fervor began to grow, a fire fanned by numerous influential writers and publishers, such as Alexander Hamilton, Thomas Paine, the author of the famous pamphlet that encouraged revolution, Common Sense, and Benjamin Franklin. Finally, with the battles of Lexington and Concord, in which local colonist militia engaged British soldiers in skirmishes and defense, and with the drafting of the famous Declaration of Independence, the war began. It was a hard-fought war, ending in an American victory, made official by the signing of the Treaty of Paris. This made the American colonies a free, independent nation, and released them from British rule. The ultimate conclusion of the war was heavily influenced by the way both the Americans and the British communicated within their own networks and with the opposing side. A major component of the American colonies' victory was a series of complications and just downright fails within the British communications, and also a series of brave men communicating and working to spread the message of freedom and liberty within the colonies. Several documents and letters played a very important role in provoking the war, providing clarity on the terms of battle, organizing attack and military strategies, and other things which are very important to the outcome of a war. Now to Josh for an in-depth look at particular instances which demonstrate the points we just made. You will hear our points restated, and then stories and evidence from the war to support and help you understand them. Let's get to it.
At the time, communication was vital to determine the war's outcome. Throughout the war, the different countries, generals, and leaders would communicate to each other through letters and documents. These letters and documents information would disseminate across the countries through sermons, speeches, meetings, pamphlets, broadsides, newspapers, and magazines to be known by the people. Even the document that marked the beginning of the war would have a copy sent to the king, the Declaration of Independence. This document was sent to Britain, a definite and unexpected statement of division and liberty. Although they expected a response after such a bold remark, the king actually ignored the colonists at first, picturing them as an inconvenience. Eventually, he ordered some troops over to the colonies to put some order in the New World, but not really even giving much thought to it. A mistake on his part. Something that the colonists had that the king nor the troops expected was patriotism. Patrick Henry, a year earlier, communicated to the colonies a beautiful speech remembered by most people for his "Give me liberty or give me death." As the colonists actually started inflicting casualties to the British, the word got around, boosting the New World's morale and patriotism even more. After the British began noticing how serious the colonists were, they decided to send troops to seize an arms cache. The plan was luckily foiled by Paul Revere and other writers, most famously remembered as his famous "The British are coming." If the colonists weren't prepared, they would have easily been defeated. But due to Paul Revere communicating to the colonists about the British being on their way, the Minutemen were able to protect themselves from them. Another defining factor of the war was not only colonists having good communication, but the British having terrible communication. A great example of this was the Battle of Saratoga. This battle was won when General Burgoyne was ambushed and got completely surrounded by the colonists. Luckily, General Burgoyne was scheduled to join up with General Howe. who was said to be a young, bright, and brilliant general. However, Howe decided that he could take the rebel capital at Philadelphia rather than deploying his army to meet up with Burgoyne. Burgoyne, after realizing that General Howe wasn't coming, which would be a couple of days of just waiting, he would move to the offensive, but to no avail, to be quickly stomped out and then surrender. During the whole Revolutionary War, the colonists would be the underdogs to the point where they were more of an inconvenience until the very last second, leaving the British thinking, how on earth did we lose to the colonists? Possibly being the deciding factor, completely changing the tides of the war, and the colonist trump card from the start was their efficient, clear communication between the colonies.